Hi, everyone. I'm Anya Chrisanthon, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I am very excited to introduce our guest today. His name is Kevin Vaughn, and he is an author, and he's a corporate trainer and a mortgage trainer. So he comes directly from the mortgage industry, so I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to talk to him today about all things mortgage, currently what's going on, and of course about his brand new book. All right, you guys, welcome Kevin to the show.
How you doing, Anya?
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Not a problem, not a problem. I definitely look forward to it all weekend.
Great. Well, Kevin, if you don't mind, per usual, we usually start off by giving a little bit of an introduction. So if you can take us through your professional journey and tell us how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a pretty long background, about 5 to 10 years as a loan officer, selling mortgages, typically refi, some purchase. And then I eventually got into sales coaching from there and being a corporate trainer. And what I do for a living is basically every single day, I talk to 22-year-olds and 24-year-olds about mortgages and about finances, and I kind of get them up and running. It's their first job out of college. And I make sure that they're ready to start selling, in about 6 to 12 weeks from when they meet me.
Nice. So you're dealing with a lot of millennials in your...
Yeah, I'm an old millennial, but I'm dealing with the younger ones. I'm dealing with the Generation Zers and all that. So it's been great. And that's what brought about the book that I wrote. Not only with them, but also just talking to people as a loan officer, you start to see that people just aren't educated about mortgages and about real estate and everything in between. And I think that creates this sense of fear.
I'm so totally agreeing with you on this. I've always, so I'm very lucky that I think in my career, I started off in finance actually. So I used to work for a big finance company and then for real estate. So, it teaches you all the essentials, right? You're kind of forced to learn, but most people, if they're not in that kind of a role, they're really clueless about what is a PMI, what does that even mean? How does it actually work? What's an amortization schedule or anything personal finance related, right? People have almost like stereotypes, what they see on TV. Sometimes it's not necessarily the best stuff, like, Wall Street and all the stereotypes that they associate with Wall Street. And they almost have more fear of investing in Wall Street than think about it as like, it's something that everyone should be doing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So when I first meet my classes, that's usually the first thing I tell them. Forget everything you've seen on TV about, mortgages and finances and things like that. You're not Leonardo DiCaprio. This is not the Wolf of Wall Street. We're going to talk to people and connect with people and educate people in order to sell what we're trying to sell.
Yes.
So
and
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And I love what you said that we're going to educate people and we're going to connect with people in order to sell. Right. So would you think that that's definitely the most important, right? A lot of people think like sell, but they don't think about creating that connection, creating that relationship. And really it comes down to serving people. And if you can educate them, they're going to be grateful for that, because a lot of people think that, well, I'm dealing with really high-end clients. They know it all.
Right.
But would you say that most people, even when they're buying $1 million house, a lot of the times they really have no idea still, right?
They have no idea.
No idea.
You talk to people, whether they have a 500 credit score or 700 credit score, whether they're a doctor or a truck driver. The one thing that they all have in common is that they know a little bit more than a little.
Exactly.
And that's basically the extent of it. But, you know what you know from TV, from magazines, from what you read. And I want to put it out there. That's why I wrote the book, is to put it out there in a way that people can digest it. Where, when I do the classes for 22-year-olds, I don't use a lot of jargon from the industry. I use basic language. And I did the same thing as a loan officer. And that was why I was successful doing it, because people could understand what I was saying. I think the biggest mistake that salespeople make when it comes to financial services in general, a lot of times you're in a call center environment, or maybe, you're live with the borrower, and you think that a sense of urgency is what's going to get you the sale. if you push, and now, that you're going to convince people in that way. And that's just not the case. It really comes down to connection, and that comes from educating them and motivating them. You have to find out what the motivation is. So, I can definitely identify with it. I can say from personal experience in 2008, that was right around the time I was really thinking about buying a house. I thought that, this is what you do. I'm getting married soon. I got, kids. I got 4 kids total. And, we're 4 kids. I'm a busy.
Oh my God, you must
guy.
be busy guy.
Yeah.
How do you do it, Kevin? 4 kids.
Well, my oldest, right? So I started young. My oldest is already 16. So she's about to turn 17. So she helps. And obviously my wife and, family and stuff like that. But it is a lot. But it's kept me motivated. But back in 2008, everything fell apart. Yeah. The mortgage crisis, financial crisis on Wall Street and everything else, I think it did something to millennials in general. I think that that distrust or that fear factor it's just bred into us, because when we were coming out of college and everything else, and even as they come out now, it's an economic downturn. It's a recession, or whatever word you want to put on it. It's scary, right? So we felt like there's not as much opportunity for us as there was for our parents. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that felt unfair. So I think that's why millennials are the way that we are, or they are. They think differently because it's out of fear. And I think that for me, once I came back into the mortgage industry after everything fell apart, I'd left for a few years. I saw what they did. I saw the regulations. I saw the fact that, it's a little bit more responsible. And I think that translated to real estate as well. The values aren't as inflated as they once were. But at the same time, they came down. They were inflated, they came down, and now they're going to go back up again.
Absolutely. But I think it's definitely a different situation now from what we've experienced in the last bubble, where values were overinflated. And obviously a lot of people were getting mortgages who weren't probably supposed to be getting mortgages. It's like, right, no job, no income, here's a mortgage, no problem. Here, you can buy a house, right?
The no doc loan, exactly. How much do you make? I make $100,000. Okay, great. Congratulations.
Yep, exactly. So I think today it's definitely a lot different. And with all the indication, it seems that even when we're going to experience another downturn, which is inevitable, right? Everything's cyclical, but it seems like housing is actually going to be remain strong and solid. At least it shouldn't plummet in value, because there's really no overvaluation there. So that's always good to know. And I'm sure it's comforting for people that you're teaching now to know that, we're heading in the right direction and that there's a bright future for everyone in this industry.
Absolutely. I think, values are definitely set to rise. Rates are still relatively low. So it's the perfect time. I mean, if we're looking to take advantage of, the market, as far as home ownership, right now is the time to do it. Well, the rates are still relatively low and the values are set to go up. So I want to get the word out. I want to let everyone know, especially people that are younger and maybe they never thought about owning a home. I recently purchased a new construction myself. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
How was your experience with that?
It was interesting. Right. So, I looked at a bunch of houses before I looked at new construction, because I'm thinking, new construction you think is more expensive and all this other stuff. But after looking at the older homes, you start to see all the issues that they have, and the style is different, and you have to put money into it. And me and my wife, we're just not into that. We want to be able to move in and get back to work and get back to running around with the kids. So for me, it was perfect. And it was actually, you didn't worry about the appraisal, you didn't worry about inspections and stuff like that, because it's brand new. It's yours, and you get to kind of create, your own spin on things.
So did you find that financing new construction was a little bit different from the traditional resale? Because I know a lot of issues sometimes come out when we're dealing with loan officers who may not be experienced in new construction financing, and usually can cause a lot of delays, etc. So how was your experience with that?
My experience was like most are. It was excruciating. But But because I'm in the industry, I know that it's supposed to be that way. And it's to protect the borrower as well as the lender and everyone in between. So I think once people just understand that, you're in for some work, and it's not that much work, but, it's more work than you're used to doing. You have to get some documents. They're going to look into things, but at the end of the day, they're going to make sure that everything checks out and make sure that you're in a good position when you purchase the home.
Absolutely. And I always have a conversation with my buyers. And I ask them, hey, when was the last time you got financing for a home? Because if it was pre, 2007, then it was a completely different story than what you're going through today in order to get financing. I know I personally bought my home almost 3 years ago now. And I remember up until the day we were closing, I was like, oh my God, are they going to give me a loan? Like, and you think like, okay, I make, good money. Like I have great credit score. Like I'm doing everything right. But yet they make you feel so like, oh, can you tell us why you missed this payment when you were 18 years old on your, Target account or whatever? And it's like, what? $10? Like,
you're getting investigated for, stealing a candy bar when you were 8,
Exactly. So that, I think I can see the point of doing it. And I think it's great because it is going to keep some people from buying that house who may think that, hey, I'm ready to buy a house, but in reality, they may not be financially prepared so that if something does happen down the road, they're not putting themselves in a position that a lot of people ended up when the whole thing came crashing down. So, but it's very important to have that conversation with the borrower that, hey, they're going to ask you for this, this, and that, and then they're going to ask you for it again and again, and don't take it personally, right?
Correct.
Definitely an important thing to set up expectations.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, Kevin, so I'd like to talk a little bit about your book. First of all, congratulations on writing your first book. That is a huge achievement within itself.
Thank you.
And your book is called How Millennials Will Beat Their Parents to Retirement: The Cure to What's Always Been Wrong with How We Retire. So tell us a little bit about the book itself, why you decided to write it. We kind of got a little bit into it, but who the book is for and what it's all about.
Yeah, it's been quite the process. It was easy to write. It took a while, but it's easy to write because I'm surrounded by it every single day. It came from a moment of inspiration with my wife. But beating your parents to retirement, I think people overlook the weight of that statement, right? So I'm not talking about retiring earlier than they did. I'm actually trying to set myself up to retire before they do. And that's what the book is about, is that there's ways to manipulate your finances in order to create a better life for yourself. I love working. I love my job. I love everything that I do. But at the same time, I want to make sure that one day I can enjoy myself. And I think that the concept of retirement is outdated. I think to wait till you're 65 years old to say, you know what, now it's time for me, is kind of, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I refuse to do it. So because of my background in financial services, I know how to get myself there. And I know that home ownership is a key part of that. There's no quicker way to develop wealth or to develop financial stability and security than building equity in your home. If you have equity, then all things are possible. You may not be making $150,000 a year, but if you own a home and you're paying it, and more importantly, you're doing things to pay it off sooner, you're gonna come out ahead, and you're gonna be able to do things like maybe take a break. That's what the book gets into. Why wait until 65? Why not, when you're 40 or 45, take a year off or 2 years off or whatever it is? And there's strategies involved in getting there, and we get into that in the book. So it came about though when I was talking to my wife, because we had just bought the house. I check Zillow a lot, and I'm always checking like the values and stuff like that. It's almost like I'm still looking for a house, how much I check it. But I saw that the values of my home, they went up. There was recent sales of like 50,000 more than what I bought it for about 2 months after I purchased. I started to get excited. I said, you know what this means, right? The values, they're going up. And my wife looked at me and she said, yeah, well, we'll see. I said, no, you don't understand how it works. So, throughout the conversation, I'm telling her, maybe we can take advantage of this. Maybe in 5 years when we look to, semi-retire or take a break, this is part of it. This is part of how we get there. And the book continues to get into that. But I talk to millennials, I talk to, young people every single day. And the more that they learn, the more excited they get about it. The more they start to develop goals of buying a house. And that's what the book goes into. It's a quick read. It's a quick read. I know, we're in a microwave generation. Everyone wants it nice and quick. Now you have 15-minute segments for shows and stuff like that. So I wanted to make it easily readable to anybody, whether you're, you know nothing about mortgages and real estate, or if you know a lot about it. You can still take everything that I'm saying and apply it to your life. So I hope I accomplished that. But so far the response has been great. So.
Yeah, I saw that you were recently on some of the websites, and I read that it was what recommended 14 books that you must read before you turn 30 years old or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was saying books that you should read if you're in your 20s.
Yes, that's right. So,
yeah,
and some of those books on that list I've read, so you're definitely in good company there. So it's, I mean, Gabby Bernstein and Rachel Hollis were on that same list. I mean, that's a pretty good company to be in. For sure.
Yeah, I appreciate, the fact that I was put on the list. It kind of came organically just from me, reaching out to people on social media, trying to get, my name out there and let people know about the book, most importantly. I'm not out there trying to make $1 million off of it. I do have, a natural desire to teach people in order to help them. So, the book is, available on Amazon, available through my website. And, it's basically just to help people out and to give them that financial stability or freedom that everyone's looking for. Everyone's looking to avoid the grind.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
If you can inspire them and show them the tools that are available. And I think, again, people are making it so much more difficult in their minds than it really is, that
Correct.
If you can provide that for them, I'm sure you're going to change a lot of lives. So you go by a pen name in your book, right? You don't go by Kevin Vaughn. So you use a pen name of Pnt Given. So can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to take on a pen name and how that came about?
And why such a weird one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm looking to stand out. I mean, as a salesperson, I think it's just naturally you look to stand out. So the name is Pnt Given, but it's spelled Pnt Gvn. So you may not get it when you first read it. But it's meant to be eye-catching. But more importantly, the meaning behind the name is just simply that I'm looking to deliver a message or to educate through what I'm writing. That there's something that you should benefit from reading it. I'm not writing about vampires, teenage vampires, kissing each other in the hallway in high school. Although that's good too. That's good too. Yeah, I mean, that's okay too. But something that's going to really impact your life. That's really going to impact everyone's life, because we live in a community when it comes to real estate, when it comes to mortgages, when it comes to everything. So the more people that get excited about real estate and about their finances and being happier and, breaking free from, corporate America, whatever your goal is, to take a break when you're 42, I think that it's worth it. So I was actually doing some research on this, and I looked at France, right? So I don't know if you know this, but in France, they have the two types of people, Julius and Augustus, they call it.
So, because they take a whole month off, right?
They take a whole month off.
Yeah.
And that just, when I read that, I said, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I remember growing up and having the summer vacation for 2 months, and, by the end of it, you can't wait to go back to school. Your battery's been recharged. And I think that it only makes sense that we do that in life too. Why work for 40 years straight, working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year? You get a week vacation or 2 weeks vacation or whatever it is. You don't ever really recharge your battery. And I think that, this midlife hiatus, which was the original title of the book, is an opportunity for people to recharge the battery in a major way. I think that it affects families' lives. I think that divorce and, sometimes, things that go on with your children are a byproduct of people just trying to provide to a fault. You can provide to a fault where it's just financial.
Mm-hmm.
So I
So
think that this provides a vehicle.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Because if you look at a lot of European countries, it's definitely, vacation time, a month is kind of a typical versus in US, I mean, if you get a week off, you're considered lucky, right? So
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
it you think about Americans that, is it that we're more driven than the Europeans? Is it that we're more worried, or like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, my belief is I think it just happened through time, through competitiveness, through wanting to be the best. I think that, our sport culture kind of bled into our corporate culture to where it was like, no, you got to go, go, go. You can't let someone beat you not one day, not 1 minute, not 1 second. And I get that. As a business, you have to make a profit. You want to stay competitive. But I think that it can also be counterproductive for businesses and for people in general to just go, go, go. We're not made to do that. And I think you see people getting burnt out. You see people, going through personal struggles, addiction, and all types of stuff because there's just no release.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's imperative that we tell people that you can get that.
Mm-hmm. So, Kevin, what are some of the strategies that you talk about in your book that could help you achieve that financial freedom that you're able to take a year off if you need to?
Well, I don't want to give away too much because I want them to get the book. But I can tell you this. So there's 4 main approaches. There's the homeowner approach. There's the investor approach.
Mm-hmm.
There's the budget approach, and then there's the fundraising approach. And really, the best way to do it is to kind of gel all 4 of them together, or a combination of a few together. And it depends on your situation. It depends on your family structure. Not everyone's married with kids. So there's a section where I break down, the motivation factor for someone that's single with no kids, single with kids, married with no kids, and then what approach to take. And we kind of match those up. So the place that you have to start is, what's your number? What number do you have to get to in order to take a break?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the scary part when you see the number. It's like seeing it's like seeing the amount that you have to pay every month when you're financing a Mercedes Benz. You say, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that, and you get scared. But it goes through the numbers of it. It goes through some simple math. I kept it simple of how to get to whatever your number is. So your number basically is whatever you net. Let's say you make 80 grand, but you take home about 50 grand. You multiply that times 3 years, it's 150,000. And that sounds like a lot of money to a lot of people. But it's really not. Not when you have the power of home ownership, not when you know how to fundraise, which we get into a lot in the book, not when you know how to make the right investments. I know cryptocurrency is big right now, but there's a million different things you can invest in. And not when you know how to budget correctly. Mm-hmm. So being a homeowner and a new homeowner, you probably went through the same thing. When you go to apply for a mortgage, the first thing you start to look at is your bank statements. You start to see like, okay, wow, so I went to Wawa or I went to wherever, 5 times, and like, oh my God, they're getting me, they're getting all this money out of me. How can I do things differently? How can I put more money in my pocket to put towards this, this taking this break, or just put into my bank account in general? Mm-hmm. So the book goes into that at great detail.
Okay. And Kevin, you had mentioned earlier about some of the strategies to help you pay off your mortgage sooner, potentially. So what are some of those strategies that we could talk to our customers, to help them achieve that financial freedom?
Right. So that's the most important thing. So people think that, okay, well, just in financing in general. So they tell me that my payment's this. So every single month I need to make this payment, right? Car payment's $400 a month. So every month I need to make $400. If you actually look at Credit Karma, is what I do with my borrowers, and I teach my loan officers the same thing. They have a debt repayment calculator. And what people always get tied up in is the interest rate. It's always interest rate, interest rate, interest rate. But there's no concept of time and how time is affecting how much you're actually paying, right? So if I'm paying 20% for a year, and someone else is paying 2% for 20 years, I'm going to pay less. You know, there's principal and there's interest, right? And that interest is not just a rate, but it's also how long you're paying it for. So for homeowners, you know, the strategy is to make more than what the minimum payment is, whether that's on your car, whether that's on your student loans, whether that's on your mortgage, and most importantly, your mortgage. If you put just $100 more towards principal every single month, you are going to save tens of thousands of dollars that you could put in the bank, that you could use towards taking a break, you know? So it's basic stuff. And I keep it simple in the book, but it's very basic strategies. It's basic stuff that people just are never taught. And this is what they should be teaching in school.
Absolutely. Yes. We're definitely lacking that in our classroom education. Now, talk to us a little bit about strategy of making 2 monthly payments instead of making 1 monthly payment, like a bi-weekly, right? Because you end up making 1 extra payment.
Correct. That's exactly how it's done. So if you pay, if you take your mortgage payment basically and divide it in 2, right? The monthly payment and divide it in 2, but pay it bi-weekly, you're actually making an extra mortgage payment every single year. And that's kind of the age old, here's how you get ahead. But really it's about what that amount comes to at the end of the year. So if it's $1,500 as your mortgage payment, then you make an extra $1,500 towards principal every single month. You can accomplish the same thing just by taking the $1,500 divided by 12 and throwing that on your monthly mortgage payment as well. But we get paid bi-weekly, so it's easier to budget it if you do it in that way.
That makes sense. Okay. And, you know, is there any, besides your own book, what are some of the best books that you have read about personal finance that were inspiration to you that you really learned from?
Honestly, I can't say that it's from a book.
Okay.
You know, it's just from experience. Everything that I write about or I'm about to write about is, you know, based off of all the experiences that I've had in life and business and everything else. So it's not from a book. It's definitely from real life situations, dealing with real people. Quick story I could tell you is I talked to a lady as a loan officer that lived in Chicago or Detroit. And she said that she wanted to get the equity out of her house. I said, okay, well, great. I was all excited. I said, great, I can help you with that. We can do this cash out loan. I get you your equity. And then she said, okay, great, let's do it. So she said, so how do I get the money out? I said, well, we're going to do this refinance. Your payment's going to go from, you know, $2,000 a month to $2,400 a month, but you're going to get this money out. And she said, oh, well, my payment's going to go up. She just didn't understand the concept of it. And at that point, I realized people just don't get it. They just don't get it. And it's not as hard as people make it out to be. And I think that the way that it's been taught to people is wrong. It's been taught to people at the closing table, right? So we were teaching people what's on the test while they're taking the test. So, you know, no one's prepared, and we need to get them prepared so they'll be more confident, they'll be more educated, and we'll be more successful as salespeople.
So I'm sure as a loan officer in your work career, you've probably seen a lot of people make huge mistakes. So sounds like, you know, but you can get into some hot water with taking money out of your house. So what are some of the biggest things that you've seen that you would recommend that we stay away from?
Well, we're serial refinancers, right? So that's how the country's been able to operate, right? Every 2 years or whatever it is, you take out 10 grand, 20 grand, and, you know, you're rich for a day or you're rich for a month or whatever it is. And that sounds good, but your payment goes up. Depending on where the market is, your interest rate could go up. And more importantly, you start back at 30 years in most cases. So this relationship between time and money that you owe is just so important that people just don't, you know, they can't fully wrap their heads around. That's why I say to use that debt repayment calculator so you can see it. It's not a concept. It's something that is true. And it's something that people don't get. So when I put someone into a good loan, or when my team of people put someone into a good loan, you know, we always advise them, listen, you're in a great position. I don't suggest you do anything beyond here besides accelerate your payments, besides pay it off sooner. If you refinance, the only reason you should be doing that is to maybe move from FHA to conventional, you know, to remove MIP, or to get a lower interest rate or to shrink the term. But if you're taking money out to live or to survive or to do the things that you want to do, just know you're doing it at the cost of time, right? At the cost of your time. So the more people understand that, the more they start to say, okay, well, what else can I do to get that money? You know, what am I doing? Am I budgeting correctly? Do I need that? Do I need this? You know, there's wants and there's needs. And I think that people, they take the quick grab to the want, and usually it's a smaller want than the bigger ones. You know, like taking 5 years off to me would be a much bigger deal at the age of 40, whatever, than, you know, upgrading from a Nissan to, you know, a BMW. You know, so I think that once people take a realistic look at their own finances and what they're doing, they'll see that the sky's the limit. There's so much you can do.
Yeah, and you talk about time, and it's definitely, you know, time is money. And the sooner you start investing, the richer you'll be, because it's all about the compounding effect, and you're basically making the money work on its own. This money is making more money. Now this more money is making its own money. And when you sleep, you're basically ended up making money versus waiting until you're 40 or later in life to start investing. And then you're going to have to play a whole lot of catch up for that. So
correct. Absolutely. And I've been reading your articles on your, on the site about the sales aspect of it too. So I definitely want to get into that, because I think you have great stuff about, you know, contact rates and all that stuff. So there's just so much to talk about. So.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate everything you do, bringing awareness to this generation. And you're definitely right about people being scared after going through kind of getting burned, and they still remember that feeling. And, you know, there's no reason why you should be afraid to invest in yourself. So,
absolutely.
And Kevin, where do you hang out online? Where can people connect with you, and where can we get your book?
So on LinkedIn, you can see me on LinkedIn. You know, my name's Kevin Vaughn, Vaughn, like Vince Vaughn, right? And my website is pntgvnbooks.com. That's pntgvnbooks.com. My books are available on Amazon, and I'm also in Goodreads and, you know, a couple other places. But more than likely, you know, definitely check out the book on Amazon. And let me know what you think. Definitely leave a review.
Absolutely. And I'll be sure to link all of this information in the show notes, so you guys will be able to get easy access to that. And Kevin, best of luck with your book. I'm sure it's going to do a lot of good for the readers. So you guys be sure to check it out and leave a review for Kevin. Kevin, I appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to talk to you next time you're coming out with a new book as well.
Absolutely. Read the book, guys. It's a great book. Anya, I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak about it. And good luck with what you got going on, too. This is a great platform for people. And more importantly, you're definitely educating, you know, your industry. So good job. Keep it up.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon, Kevin.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.